It's gaslighting day on the Dr. Duke Show, as Democrats insist that it's Republicans who want to defund police, and that somehow critical race theory doesn't really exist. I'm Dr. Duke, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. We are the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and those college campuses all around the world. Before we start, I do want to remind you that we're not just about bringing you problems in education, but we also provide solutions. We have a school, an online school, a first-rate online school. It's a Judeo-Christian school. It's classical education, and we are now enrolling school students for the fall. I encourage everyone to request a free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedomforschool.com. Take a look at our school. Take back control of your kids' education. There will be no critical race theory, no Planned Parenthood, none of that nonsense in our school. All right, it's time for Katie Petrick to give us a look at the health of our republic.
Greetings, Earthlings of Team Healthy Republic. If you're new to this planet, I'm the non-alien Katie, here to talk about the status of our once great country. And if you like what you see and hear, then hit that subscribe button and share the video, because sharing is caring. All right, today's question. Are we living in an extraterrestrial world? Is the President of the United States an alien? And I don't mean the south of the border variety or the non-president president, who is the one waiting in the wings. I mean literally waiting in the wings. There's Kamalama Ding Dong just waiting for the right moment to go all Abby and Martha Brewster on Biden. His suffering, and ours, needs to end. Dun dun dun! Hello, Clarice. Like Hannibal Lecter, Joe likes sniffing things, so there's that. But don't forget the side of cannibalism.
To the President of the United States!
And there's a creepiness that goes to new galactic levels.
I got them $1.9 trillion relief so far. They're going to be getting checks in the mail that are consequential this week for childcare.
Maybe he was just whispering for dramatic effect. It's not like it's a perpetual thing.
Don't dismiss it at all. Just remind him, I wrote the bill on the environment. Why would I not be for it?
I just wish he was with it. That's a man who no longer has control of his faculties.
Guess what? Employers can't find workers. I said, yeah, pay them more. This is an employees bargaining chip now. What's happening?
I don't know, Joe. I don't know. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there has been a lot of UFO talk lately, and a new report came out claiming that the government can't explain some cray-cray stuff. And then based on those clips, I mean, it's possible. Think about it. An alien would want to come down to take over the world, right? That's what all of the sci-fi movies say, at least. And first, they say they come in peace.
We can join forces, stop the shouting, and lower the temperature. For without unity, there is no peace, only bitterness and fury.
Then the truth comes out, and all they, again aliens, but also everyone on the left, all they have is bitterness and fury to make up for their confusion. And they, the left, showed how manipulated they can become. In examples from just this week, they showed how far removed they are from sanity and desire the degrading of the culture. Cataluna Enriquez was crowned Miss Nevada. Cataluna is a transgender Filipino-American. A man won Miss Nevada, and the news media cried in joy.
And you are capable of anything as long as you believe in yourself.
So that was another example of a pageant queen who I can't relate to at all. But equity. Equity didn't help a transgender named Cece Telfer, who was told he has too much testosterone to compete in the Olympic trials in the women's 400-meter hurdles. Because he's a man. That's a hurdle he can't overcome, no matter how much he jabs himself with estrogen. And yet, I'd rather have Cece compete for America on the women's team if it means not having Gwen Berry on the team. The self-titled activist athlete turned her back on the flag while the national anthem was playing at the Olympic trials this past weekend. The anthem was scheduled to play at the trials, and it coincided with the podium ceremony for the hammer throw event. Naturally, this means Barry was set up. The national anthem really blindsided her. Barry took third place in the hammer throw, but first in woke crybaby antics. She cried out for the attention in hopes of getting the Kaepernick or Rapinoe treatment. I gave her attention just to say, don't give her any more attention. And don't believe a word of what the White House has to say about this.
Part of that pride in our country means recognizing there are moments where we are, as a country, haven't lived up to our highest ideals. And it means respecting the right of people granted to them in the Constitution to peacefully protest.
Ah, yes, Jen Psaki at her job with the blather from her script. To note, I do believe this is the only time she has defended the Constitution. Also, I'd say Psaki is an alien, but she's too robotic. Now that the aliens, or government in this case, have confused you and left you bitter, they bring you to their side to do their bidding.
I strongly support the idea that if I had my way, there'd be no private contributions to see who gets elected, how much money you raise. If I had my way, and I think it's really important that every election day would be a day off, because people who work certain shifts can't make it to the election. I would make sure there's automatic registration when you turn 18. That's what I think everybody thinks this fight is about, and it's a worthy fight.
And that's why the leader, Alien Biden, says Americans can be nuked by the government. In a fumbling, bumbling way, Biden tried to talk about how the crime spike in the country is all because of guns, not because of the lack of police enforcement.
Well, the tree of liberty is not water with the blood of patriots. What's happened is that there never been, if you wanted to think you need to have weapons to take on the government, you need F-15s and maybe some nuclear weapons. The point is that there's always been the ability to rationally limit the type of weapon that can be owned and who can own it.
Call him a tyrant, call him an alien. Just don't call him right-minded. We are living in interesting times, to say the least. Never in a bajillion light years would I have guessed I'd be making tongue-in-cheek comparisons of the President of the United States to green Martian variety of aliens. But then Joe Biden was sworn in and E.T. phoned home. So here we are. Until next time, stay healthy, America.
Joined now by Vicki McKenna for our weekly Culture Cast segment. Vicki, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Duke.
You're the kind of woman that could wear camo, and it's better than seeing you in silk. I just got to say, it looks really good on you.
Camo and lace.
Camo sounds like
lace.
Sounds like a Stevie Nicks song.
I'm an 80s retro girl, heart and soul.
There you go. We're going to talk today about gaslighting, because the Republican Party is America and the Republican Party is being gaslighted about issue after issue after issue from the Democrat Party. Two of the most glaring instances of this that I want to talk about today. Number one, they're basically now the Democrats saying it's Republicans who want to defund cops, which is perhaps the biggest gaslight ever.
Something one of the advisors said this weekend, Cedric Richmond, he said, Republicans defunded the police by not supporting the American Rescue Plan. But how is it that that is an argument to be made when the president never mentioned needing money for police to stop a crime wave when he was selling the American Rescue Plan?
Well, the president did mention that the American Rescue Plan, the state and local funding, something that was supported by the president, a lot of Democrats who supported and voted for the bill, could help ensure local cops were kept on the beat in communities across the country. As you know, didn't receive a single Republican vote.
They're saying because Republicans wouldn't vote for $1 trillion, quote, rescue plan, the American Rescue Plan, that it's really the Republicans that want to defund police, even though defunding police has been going on since Ferguson, since 2015. That's when the calls started in the various different cities, including Milwaukee, including Madison, including all of the cities that you're going to eventually see, I think, on a graphic that's pulled up. This is something that has been happening for a long time. And the idea that by not voting for a giant bill nobody read, that it was not explicitly even advertised that police forces would be funded in this bill, to blame the Republicans for not voting for something that was going to drive us even more deeply into debt and closer to a debt crisis is absurd. One thing to point out, however, the American Rescue Plan, that's a city bailout. And if you will actually go take a look at the dollars that have already been spent by the cities, count how many of them have gone to police departments. None.
Yeah, and this is a huge Democrat trick, right? You get this huge omnibus bills, right, where you're spending trillions and trillions of dollars, and then you throw in one little thing, right, that would somewhat support the idea that you had a modicum of respect for police.
It wasn't even that though. No, because it was a city bailout. It was just a way to take cities that had already driven themselves into a hole with a budget and give them away, Democrat cities, and give them a way to dig themselves out, at least temporarily, with one-time money. It was never advertised as something to backfill depleted police departments. And again, as I point out, the defunding police movement, it happened well in advance of COVID. In fact, it began before Donald Trump was even president of the United States. So this is something that has been coming on us for a long time, and it is a manifest lie to say that it's the Republicans that are trying to defund police. Every time Republicans try to move explicit dollars into police budgets, into police, as they did at the state legislative level, attempted to penalize cities that would defund police, they're shot down at every single turn by Democratic politicians.
And you're exactly right. And it's one of those bills that if you had passed it, that money would have gone to the states, and there was no requirement that they spend it on police. In fact, most of those big blue cities could have taken the money and then further cut police budgets. Go back to that. They did exactly that. They did. Go back to the graphic. This is the same Democrat Party that pulled $15 million out of Portland, $1 billion out of New York City's police budget, $150 million away from Los Angeles, $8 million from Minneapolis, another $18 million from police in Oakland, California. And they expect us to believe that the reason they keep doing this is because they get away with it. Do you believe that Americans are so ignorant and uneducated that this is a working ploy for them? Absolutely not. This has been going on for so long, and at the local level, I mean, first off, this is being peddled by CNN, MSNBC. Take a look at how their ratings are going right now. The national news media is trying to create a narrative that deflects the responsibility of the defund police movement from the Democrats because they're taking a beating in the polls. If you take a look at the New York mayoral race, for instance, there is a candidate who is a Democrat, obviously, but he's a police officer, and he is beating the ever-loving snot out of the other candidates that are about woke progressive politics, that are about shutting down jails, that are about bail reform, that are about not prosecuting offenders, even violent offenders, about hamstringing the police. And by the way, the Democrats have been rhetorically using police as the boogeyman for all the ills of bad left-wing policy for the last 50 years. So the police departments have suddenly become the poster children for all that's wrong. And the Democrats have just tried. This is just the Democrats' way of trying to cover over bad policy they've been supporting for decades. And the polls show that Black and Latino voters, in small majorities, actually agree with the Republicans, not the Democrats. After the break, let's talk about how they're gaslighting us on, of all things, critical race theory. All right, we're back now with Vicki McKenna and CultureCast. And if that wasn't enough to have to get your mind around, the Democrats actually arguing that it's Republicans who want to unfund police departments. How about this? They're telling us now, all these moms and dads screaming at school boards, they're trying to tell us now that there's no such thing as critical race theory. It's all made up by Republicans who are just trying to stop the teaching of history in American schools. You know what I think is fascinating is I believe it was late last week, early this week, I think it was late last week, there was a story of teachers all across the United States, including around 90 teachers in the state of Wisconsin, who pledged that if in fact their states passed a law that banned teaching critical race theory, they were going to violate the law. They signed their names saying, we are going to violate the law. And it's interesting that suddenly it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist, but if it exists and you pass a ban on it, we're going to violate the law and teach what doesn't exist. Or, I mean, this is the ridiculous canceling logic that the left expects Americans to stomach and to swallow. But here's the thing: so many parents woke up to this. A lot of people deserve a huge amount of credit. Christopher Rufo from Manhattan Institute, Tucker Carlson has made it a national issue on his program, and I don't think you can miss the importance of that. Talk radio, but it's because parents were watching their kids be educated. I'm using finger quotes, educated virtually, and so they got to see
the absolute appalling ideological poison that was being, expressed to their children, and they fought back. And because they're being successful, I think is why you're seeing sort of this desperate attempt now to pretend it doesn't exist.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And it boggles the mind. These same administrators, principals, the superintendents are basically literally telling, not sugarcoating it, if you don't get on board with our new racial curriculum, you don't belong here, we're going to replace you, there's no time, right? So telling them that.
You're fired.
And then you got teachers now saying, if states and governments prohibit us from racializing the classroom, we're going to defy that. Right? And yet all of this, according to the Democrats, is all just made up nonsense.
Just a phantom, a figment of your imagination. There was just a story yesterday of the Virginia PTA, a group of parents who wanted to reject, and let's say what critical race theory is, it's anti-white racism. They wanted to reject this as an ideology. And so the National PTA Association said, we're going to essentially delist you as an organization after parents got together, threw the old board out, and established a board of parents that wanted to actually, talk about equality, not equity, that wanted to reject the idea that there should be institutional racism as, I guess, the answer to institutional racism. And they were told they were not allowed to have a PTA. They were not going to be recognized. So that what you have is the left getting caught with its pants down, and parents being very, very successful. And so now the left doesn't know how to fight back against this, so you pretend it doesn't exist. And they'll get the national media to keep repeating these lies like they did about Russian collusion and all sorts of other things. But I don't think it's going to work. I think parents are onto it. And at the local level, it's so easy to see. It's terrifying.
While we all should be very gratified that parents are awake and alive about this, that they're trying, I think the real ominous sign here that not enough of us are talking about is this, the fact that now that the parents are mobilized, it doesn't change anything. You talked about the takeover of a PTA organization. PTA just canceled them, right? So what I would suggest is this shows you how far socialism has succeeded in this country. These are socialist...
Without anyone noticing.
That's right. These are socialist Marxist taxes, right? Just keep lying. Just keep telling the big lie. And they don't care who believes you. They know, like the Soviet governments did, they know they're lying. The moms and dads know they're lying. The media knows they're lying. It doesn't matter. The lie benefits the state. So corporations, media, journalism, the universities, the schools, all repeat the big lie. And the more parents fight back, the more they are targeted and ultimately removed from the equation.
I agree, and I think that the difference in this particular instance is that more parents sign on, not fewer. It's not a few parents being called, and then all of a sudden the resistance to this. I mean, it's vile, toxic racism that we're expected to accept as policy in America. I think that what you're getting is an addition of parents, not a subtraction of parents, with every attack on a PTA, every attack on a parent, every attack on someone at a corporate HR department that inspires more people to stand up and push back, because this may be the line in the sand that we are not willing to cross. I mean, if you think back on Common Core and the fight back against Common Core, it started out with a lot of parents upset about it, and then over time, parents fell away from the movement, or they fell away from the process because it didn't seem like we were getting anywhere. It's right now, because this is not being directed by the Republicans, it's not being directed by the Libertarians or Americans for Prosperity or anybody like that. This is very organic. I don't know where it's going to go, but it seems to me like this movement's gaining steam, not losing steam. And if parents direct this for themselves, there is no telling what they could accomplish, including potentially eliminating this filth from, the American experiment.
My very last quick question, we're running out of time, Vicki, is why has this not made it to the courts? I mean, these are clear violations of the civil rights movement. If you're telling white kids they're racist, if you are creating curriculum that treats people different on the basis of race, you are in violation of a huge truckload of state and federal laws. How come this hasn't made it to the courts?
I think it's because you and I know it's not new, but all these parents who just discovered this was going on because they're watching over their child's shoulder in a Zoom education class during COVID. I think that we think it's been going on a long, long time because it has, but most parents think it's been going on, very recently. So you have begun to see lawsuits. Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty here in the state just filed a lawsuit against the city of Madison. They filed a lawsuit against, or they threatened a lawsuit against the school district of Sun Prairie. You've got potential lawsuits teed up in other school districts in Wisconsin. The very first federal lawsuit was filed in Nevada by a woman whose biracial son was told that he had to reject his whiteness. So reject 50% of his genetic code. And his mother filed a federal lawsuit in Nevada. She's got an organization that is seeking to crowdfund legal actions across the United States. So I think we're too early in to say, where are the federal lawsuits? I think if a year goes by and we don't have any more, then we're in trouble.
My only come back to you on that is the real question. The Republicans know what's going on. How come not a single one of those organizations you mentioned were Republican organizations?
You know exactly why.
Yeah, we both know. Vicky,
we know exactly why, because if they were actually about freedom, free markets and prosperity, then we would actually we'd have heard from them by now.
It's time for some real education. The leadership of George S. Patton, born 1885, died 1945. He did not survive the war. He was not killed in combat, but in a car accident. One of America's most controversial and yet most battlefield brilliant generals. I want to juxtapose his sense of leadership to what we're getting out of the Biden administration. The Biden administration has decided that the American military is a petri dish for social justice. It's all about critical race theory. It's all about political correctness. We know down through history that never works. Take a look back at what Patton had to say about leadership in the institution. Never tell people how to do things. Tell them what to do, and they will surprise you with their ingenuity. That's leadership. Don't be prescriptive. Don't micromanage people. Here's what we need done. I trust you to do it. Let them get there the way they best know how. That's ingenuity. How about this quote? A good plan, now remember, we're talking about a soldier here. Quote, a good plan violently executed now is better than a perfect plan executed next week. So if you're a military commander, or I think this applies ultimately in business too, or in life, if you subtract the violently, a good plan executed now is better than waiting around for a perfect one, because there's no such thing as a perfect plan. And how about this from General George Patton? Quote, a real man will never let his fear of death overpower his honor, his sense of duty to his country, and his innate manhood. Don't worry, he says in the end, that men will sacrifice. To be a man is to be a sacrificer, not to be toxic, not to be evil. And take a look at the last quote here. Battle is the most magnificent competition in which a human being can indulge. It brings out all that is best. It removes all that is base. All men are afraid in battle. The coward is the one who lets his fear overcome his sense of duty. Duty is the essence of manhood. Now, this is a potentially controversial quote. I understand that. But the point I think he makes is also one that has been made by many other people, including Ernest Hemingway. The thing about battle is, and you're a lucky person if you don't have to find yourself ever in battle. But the thing about battle is, it brings out what you are in ways that you cannot deny. The best of what you are and the worst of what you are. Hemingway pointed out this too. He said, there are only two experiences in human life that actually show you what you are without any illusions. One is going to war. The other is falling in love. All right, just a quick reminder that the best way to access our content is to download our Freedom Project Media app. It's completely free. Simply search Freedom Project in your app store, download it for free, and hit the allow notifications button so we can send you free content. And if you enjoy our content, please join the Patriot Club. Your tax-deductible donation also allows us to bring you these stories every single day. All you got to do is visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us, and we'll ship you this lovely tumbler, absolutely, a gift for you for your donation. All right, now we want to take a moment to show some love to our Patriot Club members. Today, we'd like to give a shout out to Robin from Southgate, Michigan. Thank you very much, Robin, for your support. And this is going to do it for the Dr. Duke Show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, we need you to stay educated, my friends.